60 miles north of Lima, Peru, construction crews are putting the finishing touches on what could be the most strategically important port in the Western Hemisphere. China has spent $3.6 billion building this massive facility, and American officials are probably losing sleep over it. The port of Chancay is about to become operational, and the implications stretch far beyond Peru's coastline. The numbers behind China's Chancay Port project are unreal. At $3.6 billion, this represents one of the largest single infrastructure investments in Peru's history. But money alone doesn't tell the full story. This port can handle massive container ships carrying up to 18,500 20-foot equivalent units. The facility's first phase has an annual capacity of 1.5 million containers, with plans to expand to 3.5 million containers as demand grows. COSCO Shipping Ports, China's state-owned shipping giant, owns 60% of the port. The remaining 40% belongs to Volcan Compañía Minera, a Peruvian mining company. This partnership structure is deliberate. China maintains operational control while giving Peru enough ownership to avoid accusations of complete foreign domination. The port spans 385 hectares, roughly the size of 540 football fields. It features 4 deep-water berths that can accommodate ships with drafts up to 18 meters. The facility includes 80 hectares of container yards, modern cargo handling equipment, and rail connections that link directly to Peru's mining regions. Geography is destiny in global trade, and Chancay's location is no accident. The port sits at approximately 11 degrees south latitude, placing it at the center of South America's Pacific coastline. This position creates a natural hub for north-south trade along the entire western coast of South America. The facility is located just 78 kilometers from Lima, Peru's capital and largest city. This proximity to Peru's economic center means cargo can reach major population centers quickly. More importantly, the port connects to Peru's existing highway network, providing access to the entire Andean region. From Chancay, ships can reach major Asian ports in 23 days, compared to 35 days from traditional East Coast ports. This time, advantage translates into significant cost savings for Asian manufacturers looking to serve Latin American markets. The port can also serve as a transshipment hub, where cargo from smaller regional ports gets consolidated onto larger ships bound for Asia. The Chancay Port represents China's broader Belt and Road Initiative extending into Latin America. This global infrastructure program, launched in 2013, aims to connect Asia with Europe and Africa through land and maritime networks. Latin America wasn't originally part of the plan, but China has quietly extended the initiative to include key projects across the region. China's approach in Latin America follows a consistent pattern. First, Chinese companies provide financing for infrastructure projects that local governments struggle to fund. Second, these projects typically involve Chinese construction companies and workers. Third, the completed infrastructure serves China's long-term strategic interests, often at the expense of traditional Western influence. In Peru alone, China has invested over $30 billion in various projects over the past 2 decades. This includes mining operations, energy projects, and transportation infrastructure. The Chancay Port represents the culmination of this investment strategy, creating a direct gateway for Chinese goods into South American markets. The port's economic impact extends far beyond Peru's borders. Traditional trade routes between Asia and South America have relied heavily on ports in Panama, Colombia, and Chile. Chancay's superior capacity and location could redirect significant cargo volumes away from these established routes. For Peru, the economic benefits are substantial. The port is expected to generate $4.5 billion in annual revenue once fully operational. This represents roughly 1.8% of Peru's entire gross domestic product. The facility will create approximately 8,000 direct jobs and an estimated 40,000 indirect jobs in related industries. The port also strengthens Peru's position as a regional mining hub. Peru produces significant quantities of copper, gold, and other minerals that China needs for its manufacturing sector. Chancay provides a direct route for these raw materials to reach Chinese factories, while finished goods flow back to South American consumers. Regional governments are watching carefully. Ecuador, Colombia, and Brazil are all evaluating how Chancay might affect their own trade patterns. Some are considering upgrades to their own port facilities to remain competitive. American officials view the Chancay Port through the lens of strategic competition with China. The Monroe Doctrine, established in 1823, has long asserted American primacy in the Western Hemisphere. China's growing economic presence in Latin America represents a direct challenge to this doctrine. The concern isn't just economic. Military analysts worry about the potential for dual-use infrastructure. While the port is designed for commercial shipping, the same facilities could theoretically support military vessels. China's expansion of port facilities in other regions has sometimes included provisions for military use, though no such arrangements have been announced for Chancay. Trade statistics underscore American concerns. China is now the top trading partner for most South American countries, having overtaken the United States in many cases. The Chancay Port could accelerate this trend by making Chinese goods even more competitive in regional markets. American agricultural exports to South America could face increased competition from Chinese products arriving through Chancay. Everything from soybeans to manufactured goods could see price pressure as Chinese suppliers gain logistical advantages. The Chancay Port incorporates cutting-edge technology that sets it apart from older facilities in the region. The container handling system uses automated guided vehicles and remote-controlled cranes. This technology reduces labor costs and increases efficiency, allowing the port to handle more cargo with fewer workers. The facility includes advanced cargo tracking systems that monitor containers from arrival to departure. This technology integration extends to the port's connection with Peru's transportation network, creating a seamless logistics chain from ship to final destination. China's investment in digital infrastructure accompanying the port is equally significant. The project includes fiber optic cables, satellite communication systems, and data processing centers. This digital infrastructure supports not just port operations, but also broader economic activity in the region. The port's construction has raised environmental concerns that reflect broader debates about large-scale infrastructure projects. The facility required significant coastal modification, including dredging and land reclamation. Environmental groups have questioned the long-term impact on marine ecosystems and coastal communities. Local fishing communities have expressed concerns about access to traditional fishing grounds. The port's operations could affect fish populations and water quality, potentially impacting livelihoods that have existed for generations. China's response has been to implement environmental monitoring systems and commit to international environmental standards. However, critics argue that these measures may be insufficient to address the project's full environmental impact. The Chancay Port is reshaping power relationships throughout Latin America. Traditional regional powers like Brazil and Mexico are watching as Peru gains enhanced strategic importance. The port gives Peru significant leverage in regional trade negotiations and economic planning. Chile, which has long served as a major Pacific gateway for South American trade, faces new competition. Chilean ports may need to specialize or upgrade to maintain their competitive positions. The same pressure applies to Colombian and Panamanian facilities that have traditionally served as regional hubs. Regional trade agreements may need revision to account for new cargo flows through Chancay. Existing arrangements between South American countries and external trading partners could become obsolete as trade patterns shift. Phase 1 of the Chancay Port is nearing completion, but Chinese planners have much larger ambitions. Phase 2 would double the port's capacity and add specialized facilities for different types of cargo. This could include dedicated terminals for automobiles, liquid bulk cargo, and refrigerated goods. The expansion plans also include enhanced rail connections to neighboring countries. Proposed rail links could connect Chancay to markets in Ecuador, Colombia, and eventually Brazil. These connections would transform the port from a regional facility into a truly continental hub. Chinese officials have discussed the possibility of a free trade zone adjacent to the port. This would allow manufacturers to establish operations near the facility, taking advantage of preferential trade terms and reduced transportation costs. The Chancay Port reflects China's evolving global strategy. As trade tensions with the United States intensify, China is diversifying its economic relationships and reducing dependence on traditional trade routes. Latin America represents a crucial market for Chinese goods and a source of raw materials for Chinese manufacturing. The port also demonstrates China's long-term thinking about global infrastructure. While Western companies often focus on short-term returns, Chinese state-owned enterprises can invest in projects that may take decades to show full returns. This patient capital approach gives China significant advantages in large-scale infrastructure competition. American policymakers are grappling with how to respond. Traditional tools like trade agreements and development aid may be insufficient to counter China's infrastructure-focused approach. Some analysts argue that the United States needs its own version of the Belt and Road Initiative to remain competitive in Latin America. The Chancay Port represents more than just another shipping facility. It's a symbol of shifting global economic power and the emergence of new trade patterns that bypass traditional Western-controlled routes. For decades, global trade has flowed through established channels dominated by American and European companies. China's investment in Chancay creates an alternative system that connects Asian manufacturers directly with South American consumers. This direct connection reduces costs, improves delivery times, and strengthens economic relationships between China and Latin America. The port's success could encourage similar projects in other regions where China seeks to establish economic influence. African ports, Southeast Asian facilities, and European terminals could all follow the Chancay model. The United States built its influence in Latin America through a combination of military power, economic investment, and political pressure. China is using a different approach, focusing on infrastructure development and trade relationships rather than military presence. This economic approach may be more effective in the current global environment. Latin American countries need infrastructure investment to support economic growth, and China is providing that investment without the political conditions that often accompany Western aid. The Chancay Port tests whether economic influence can be more durable than military or political power. If the port succeeds in reshaping regional trade patterns, it could provide a template for Chinese expansion in other regions. The Chancay Port forces American strategists to reconsider their approach to Latin America. Traditional reliance on political relationships and military cooperation may be insufficient when competing against China's infrastructure investments. Some American officials are calling for increased infrastructure spending in Latin America to counter Chinese influence. However, such spending would require significant political support and budgetary resources that may not be available. The port also highlights the importance of economic competitiveness in geopolitical competition. American companies need to offer better terms and more attractive investment opportunities to compete with Chinese state-owned enterprises. As the Chancay Port nears completion, both China and the United States are preparing for the next phase of competition in Latin America. China is likely to propose additional infrastructure projects that build on Chancay's success. The United States is developing its own strategy to maintain influence in the region. The outcome of this competition will shape Latin America's economic future and determine whether the region remains within America's sphere of influence or becomes part of China's expanding economic network. The port's operational success will depend on factors beyond Chinese control. Peruvian politics, regional economic conditions, and global trade patterns will all influence whether Chancay achieves its full potential. But one thing is certain: the completion of this massive port represents a fundamental shift in global trade geography. The Pacific Ocean, once dominated by American naval power, is becoming a Chinese commercial highway. And Peru, a country that has spent centuries on the periphery of global trade, is about to become a central player in the world's most important economic relationship. The real question isn't whether the Chancay Port will succeed. It's whether American policymakers can develop an effective response before China's advantage becomes insurmountable. Because if they can't, this $3.6 billion investment in Peru might just be the beginning of a much larger transformation that reaches far beyond South America's Pacific coast. Let us know what you think in the comments below.